Hello everyone, welcome to Key Cyber. For more updates related to cyber security, stay tuned with our social media handles and also subscribe our YouTube channel for more updates. And for new updates, press the bell icon. So today we are going to discuss about evidence collection and data seizure. As we know, digital forensic is a vast topic, and yes, digital forensic is most important part of any kind of investigation. So let's get started. And the most important part of the any investigation or any digital forensic extraction is that evidence collection and data seizure. So today we are going to discuss about how we can collect evidence with the safely and easily manner, and how we can seize any kind of data with protected manner, how we can add data into the chain of custody and so more. So let's get started. First, we need to discuss about why collect evidence. The simple reason for collecting evidences are future prevention. Without knowing what happened, you have no hope of ever being able to stop someone else from doing it again. Responsibility. The attacker is responsible for the damage done, and the only way to bring him to justice is with adequate evidence to prove his actions. The victim has a responsibility to the community. Information gathered after a compromise can be examined and used by others to prevent further attacks. So next we are going to discuss about what are the collection options. Once a compromise has been detected, you have two options. First option is pull the system of the network and begin collecting evidence. In this case, you may find that you have insufficient evidence, or worse, that the attacker left a dead man switch that destroy any evidence once the system detects that it's offline. The next option is leave it online and attempt to monitor the intruder. You may accidentally alert the intruder while monitoring and cause him to wipe his tracks. Any want necessary, destroying evidence has his goals. The next we are going to discuss about obstacles. What are the obstacles we can face during the evidence collection or data seizure? Computer transactions are fast. They can be conducted from anywhere, can be encrypted or anonymous, and have no intrinsic identifying features such as handwriting and signature to identify those responsible. Any paper trail of computer records they may leave can be easily modified or destroyed, or maybe only temporarily. Auditing program may automatically destroy the records left when computer transactions are finished with them. The next point is that investigating electronic crimes will always be difficult because of the ease of the altering the data and the fact that a transaction may be done anonymously. The best we can do is to follow the rules of evidence collection and be as assiduous as possible. The next we are going to discuss about types of evidences. Yes, there are total 15 to 20 types of evidence, but in the digital forensics or in investigation, we only need to focus on the evidences. The first one evidence is real evidence. What exactly the real evidence it is? It is any evidence that speaks for itself without relying on anything else. In electronic form, this can be log produced by an audit function provided, but the log can be shown to be from contamination. The next one is testimonial evidence. It is any evidence supplied by a witness as long as the witness can be considered reliable. Testimonial evidence can be almost as powerful as real evidence. The next one is hearsay evidence. It is any evidence presented by a person who was not a direct witness. Hearsay is generally inadmissible in court and should be avoided. The next we are going to discuss about the rules of evidence. We can discuss each rule in a depth. So first we are going to discuss about admissible. It is the most basic rule. The evidence must be able to be used in a court. The next one is authentic. You must be able to show that the evidence relates to the incident in a relevant way. The next is complete. It's not enough to collect evidence that just shows one perspective of the evidence. The next is reliable. Your evidence collection and analysis procedure must not cast doubt on the evidence authenticity and veracity. The next and the last one is believable. The evidence you present should be clearly understandable and believable to jury. The next we are going to discuss about using the preceding 5 rules, we can deserve some basic do's and don'ts. Okay, in the last slide we have discussed 5 rules, 5 rules of evidence. So according to that, we have to be derive some basic do's and don'ts. So let's get started. We can discuss each and every do's and don'ts in depth. So first one is minimize handling and corruption of original data. Once you have created a master copy of the original data, don't touch it or the original. Any changes made to its original will affect the outcomes of any analysis later done to copies. The next one is account for any changes and keep detailed logs of your actions. Sometimes evidence alteration is unavoidable. In these cases, it is absolutely essential that the nature, extent, and reasons for the changes be documented. The next one is comply with the 5 rules of evidences. Following these rules is essential to guaranteeing successful evidence collection. Then next one is capture as accurate an image of the system as possible. Capturing an accurate image of the system is relatable to minimizing the handling or corruption of original data. The next one is follow your local security policy. If you fail to comply with your company's security policies, you may find yourself with some difficulties. The next one is be prepared to testify. If you are not willing to testify to the evidence you have collected, you might as well stop before you start. No one is going to believe you if they can't replicate your actions and reach the same result. Then work fast. The faster you work, the less likely the data is going to change. Volatile evidence may vanish entirely if you don't collect it in time. If multiple systems are involved, work parallel. Then next one is proceed from volatile to persistent evidence. Always try to collect the most volatile evidence first. Then next one is don't shut down before collecting evidence. You should never ever shut down a system before you collect the evidence. Not only do you lose any volatile evidence, but also the attacker may have trojan the startup and shut down scripts. Plug and play devices may alter the system configuration and temporary file system may be wiped out. Then next and last one is don't run any programs on the affected system. The attacker may have left Trojan programs and libraries on the systems. You may inadvertently trigger something that could charge or destroy the evidence you are looking for. The next we are going to discuss about volatile evidence. Always try to collect the most volatile evidence first. An example and order of volatility would be. So here I have given some example of what is exactly volatile evidence and what exactly the volatile evidence it is. The first one is registers and cache. Then second one is routing tables. Third one is ARP cache. Fourth one is process table. Fifth one is kernel statistics and modules. Sixth one is main memory, temporary file system, secondary memory, router configuration and network topology. Those are the volatile evidence when we are going to extract any data from any digital communication devices. So first we need to extract the volatile evidence first, and we need to collect the more data and information regarding to that volatile evidences. The next we are going to discuss about general procedure. What is exactly the procedure of forensics? The first phase of forensic is identification of evidence. You must be able to distinguish between evidence and junk data. The next one is preservation of evidence. The evidence you find must be preserved as close as possible to its original state. The next one is analysis of evidence. Analysis requires in-depth knowledge of what you are looking for and how to get it. The last one is presentation of evidence. The manner of presentation is important and it must be understandable by a layman to be effective. The next we are going to discuss about collection and archiving. Once we have developed a plan of attack and identify the incident that needs to be collected. The first one is logs and logging. You should run some kind of system logging function. It is important to keep these logs secured and to back them up periodically. Messages and logs from programs can be used to show what damage an attacker did. The next one is monitoring. By monitoring, we can gather statistics, watch out for irregular and trace where an attacker is coming from and what he is doing. Unusual activity for the sudden appearance of unknown users should be considered definite cause for closer inspection. You should display a disclaimer stating what monitoring is done when users log on. The next, we are going to discuss about methods of collection. There are two basic forms of collection. First one is freezing the scene and the second one is honeypotting. We are going to discuss about first freezing the scene. It involves taking a snapshot of the system in its compromised state. You should then start to collect whatever data is important onto removable non-volatile media in a standard format. All data collected should have a cryptographic message digest created and those digests should be compared to the original for verification. Then next we are going to discuss about honeypotting. It is the process of creating a replica system and luring the attack into it further monitoring. The placement of misleading information and the attacker response to its good method for determining the attacker's motives. The next, we are going to discuss about artifacts. There is always something left behind by the attacker, be it code fragments, Trojan program, running processes, or sniffer log files. These are known as artifacts. Never attempt to analyze an artifact on the compromised system. Artifacts are capable of anything and we want to make sure their effects are controlled. The next we are going to discuss about collection steps. The first one is find the evidence. Use a checklist. Not only does it help you to collect evidence, but it also can be used to double check that everything you are looking for is there. The next one is find the relevant data. Once you have found the evidence, you must figure out what part of it is relevant to the case. The third one is create an order of volatility. The order of volatility for your system is good guide and ensures that you minimize loss uncorrupted evidence. The fourth one is remove external avenues of changes. It is essential that you avoid alteration to the original data. The fifth one is collect the evidence. Collect the evidence using the appropriate tools for the job. The last one is document everything. Collection procedure may be question later, so it is important that you document everything you do. Timestamps, digital signatures, and signed statement are all important. The next we are going to discuss about controlling contamination, the chain of custody. Once the data has been collected, it must be protected from contamination. Originals should never be used in a forensic examination. Verified duplicates should be used. A good way of ensuring that data remains uncorrupted, it is keep a chain of custody. This is a detailed list of what was done with the original copies once they were collected. The first one is analysis. Once the data has been successfully collected, it must be analyzed to extract the evidence you wish to present and to reveal what actually happened. Then time to reconstruct the events that lead to your system being corrupted. You must be able to create a timeline. Never ever change the clock on an affected system. The next one is forensic analysis of backups. When we analyze backup, it is best to have a dedicated host for the job. We need a dedicated host which is secure, clean, and isolated from any network for analyzing backups. Document everything you do. Ensure that what you do is repeatable and capable of always giving the same result. The next one is reconstructing the attack. After collecting the data, we can attempt to reconstruct the chain of events leading to and following the attacker's break-in. We must correlate all the evidence we have gathered, include all the evidence we have found when reconstructing the attack, no matter how small it is. Then next one is, and most important, searching and seizing. There is no one methodology for performing a computer forensic investigation and analysis. There are too many variables for to be just one way. Some of the typical variable that comes to into the mind includes operating system, software applications, cryptographic algorithms and applications, and hardware platform. But moving beyond these obvious variables, spring other equally challenging variable: law, international boundaries, fluidity, and methodology. There are a few widely accepted guidelines for computer forensics analysis. A computer forensic examiner is impartial. Our job is to analyze the media and report our findings. We not pre-assumption to guilt or innocence. The media used in a computer forensic examinations must be sterilized before each use. A true image that is distinct of the original media must be made and used for the analysis. The integrity of the original media must be maintained throughout the entire investigation. The next and the most important part of the controlling contamination of the chain of custody is before the investigation. For the sake of the first argument, you must have skilled technicians in-house and a top-notch lab, the right equipment, the right computer forensics tool, and so on. District attorneys may require more documentation on the chain of evidence handling. When you have a case arise, you know what is required and can work the case from the inception in support of these requirements. The next one is methodology development. Define your methodology and working according to this methodology. Here, methodology defines a method, a set of rules, guidelines, and are employed by a discipline. Then the last and the most important method is document everything. The chain of evidence is so important in a computer forensic investigation. If resources allow, have two computer forensic personnel assigned to each case every step of the way. Important in the documentation are the times that dates steps were taken, the names of those involved, and under whose authority were the steps taken. The next we are going to discuss about evidence search and seizure. So there are four methods that we can collect evidence. First one is preparation. Second one is snapshot. Third one is transport, and fourth one is examination. Prior to search and seizure, you already have the proper document filed as well as permission from the authority to seize the suspect machines. The first step is preparation. You should check all media that is to be used in the examination process, document the wiping and scanning process, check to make sure that all computer forensics tools are licensed for use and all lab equipment in working order. The step 2 is snapshot. We should photograph the scene, whether it is a room in a home or in a business. You should also note the scene. Take advantage of your investigative skills here. Note pictures, personal items, and like photograph the actual evidence. For example, the evidence is a PC in a home office. Take a photograph of the monitor, remove the case cover carefully, and photograph the internals. The third one is transport. If you have the legal authority to transport the evidence to your labs, you should pack the evidence securely, photograph, videotape, and document the handling of evidence, leaving the scene to the transport vehicle and from transport vehicle to the lab examination facility. The fourth one is examination. You should prepare the acquired evidence for examination in your lab. There are many options to on what tool to use image the drive. You could use encase, the Unix command dd, byteback, or also saveback. It is a wise to have a variety of tools in your lab. Each of these tools has its perspective strength. The important note to remember here: turn off virus scanning software. We must record the time and the date of the COMS. Do not boot the suspect's machine. When making the image, make sure that the tool you use does not access the file system of the target evidence media. After making the image seal, the original media is an electronic safe container. Catalog it and initial the container. Finally, the examination of the acquired image begins. Thanks for listening. For more updates related to cybersecurity, stay tuned with our Key Cyber channel and subscribe our YouTube channel and press the bell icon for new updates. So these are the steps and these are the techniques and do's and don'ts we need to be always remember as a forensicator and investigator to collect and seize any digital evidences. Thanks for listening. Tab tak be aware, be secure because cybercrime never pays. Thank you.